Friday's domestic box office numbers are out, and it is the first sign of relative weakness for the Avengers Endgame box office. The current reported amount of $40.8 million is a huge amount of money, but it is not the same types of money that it earned in the previous weekend. So last weekend it shattered all of the records, and this weekend it looks like it might not actually be able to get the second weekend record from Star Wars: The Force Awakens. This Friday number represents a 58% reduction from the previous Friday's number when we take out the advanced screening money from the Friday. This equates to around about the same kind of drop that Star Wars: The Last Jedi saw. Earlier in the week, there was a Deadline article talking about Endgame getting a $180 million plus second weekend. Now they're talking about a $146.9 million second weekend. Now that is still a massive amount of money. That will be the second largest second weekend ever, which is great news, but it's no longer number one. So far up until this point, it's really been smashing everything. Now it looks like here is our first sign of a real slowdown. And yes, it was expected to slow down at some point because it did earn $1.2 billion in its first weekend. If it does get this $146.9 million, which Deadline is predicting for the weekend, that'll bring its total box office in the US domestic market to $620.8 million. So what sort of records have we got with this $620 million predicted by a Deadline? Well, if we have a look at the 10-day gross record right now, which is the mark that it'll be at the Sunday, that's 10 days, we have $540 million for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So this $620 million predicted dollars, that'll absolutely shatter that record as well, and all of these records will be in games at the end of the 10 days. On this chart here, we have Force Awakens, Infinity War, Jurassic World, Last Jedi, and Endgame. And I've got 3 days of more money for the other films than what's there for Endgame. So this total here for Endgame is this $620 million, which Deadline is predicting for the Sunday. And then I've got the figures for the Wednesday for the other films here, just to see whether Force Awakens lines up with Endgame. So right now, Force Awakens is a bit better than 3 days behind Endgame now. So it was 3 days behind it. Now you can see the blue line is a little bit above, the dark blue line is a little bit above the light blue line. And so in 3 days' time, if all of this money equates out the way it's looking, The Force Awakens will have more than the $620 million there. So again, it was 3 days behind earlier in the week, and now it's sort of 2 and a bit days behind. So The Force Awakens is getting closer to Endgame, but Endgame still does have a very large lead. And on my prediction chart here, we've got The Force Awakens as the blue line. That is The Force Awakens total box office that it really got. We have the green line, which is the amount of money which Endgame has got up until the Friday. And then we have the red line, which is my projected numbers. Now, for the next 2 days on the red line, I've used Deadline's numbers. So the green line is what we actually really do have for Endgame. And then the start of the red line, the next 2 days, I've got what Deadline is predicting with this weekend amount. And then afterwards, I went back to my Infinity War ratios. And what you can see here now is that Star Wars: The Force Awakens will be just about in line with Endgame at the end of next week. Okay, the end of next week, or basically the weekdays of next week is what I'm talking about. So on the Friday, Star Wars and Endgame will be on around about the same amount of money, and then Star Wars will slowly earn a bit more money over it and take the lead. Now, again, this is assuming that Endgame will run the same way as Infinity War did, and it hasn't managed to do that so far. So Endgame's Friday to Friday drop that we now have, that is worse than what Infinity War had, and it is logical to think that it wouldn't run quite as well as Infinity War because it earned an absolutely massive amount of money in its first weekend. So it's very difficult to keep sustaining this absolutely massive amount of money it's already earned. And so it does look at this stage like it will not have the same types of legs in the box office that Infinity War had, and so it does look like it will not be able to earn more money than Star Wars: The Force Awakens earned in the US domestic market. But it does look like it'll get kind of close So it's not going to be that far off. It does look like it's got an extremely good chance of smashing the Avatar amount of money in the US domestic market, which was $760 million. And so it will become the second largest film in the US domestic market. But it looks like it has a really good chance of getting around about $900 million, maybe more than $900 million, but just not quite enough to get the $936 million. Now, this can all change once the Saturday numbers come out. The Saturday numbers might come out very good, but it's hard to see how much more Saturday can improve over this Friday result. So again, the Friday result right now is $40.8 million. That's an excellent Friday, but it needs more than an excellent Friday to beat Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That's really where we're at. So it needs world-breaking numbers, and breaking them by quite a lot. It earned less money than Star Wars: The Force Awakens earned on the equivalent Friday, and that's not good enough for it to maintain the money it needs to get the massive amount that Star Wars: The Force Awakens earned. And this chart here shows the exact same information as the previous chart, but in a different way. So the red line are the actual numbers and the blue line are the predicted numbers. But this is showing the gap between Star Wars: The Force Awakens and Endgame at the same point in time. And so we can see the red line peaks up at the top to about $110 million. That's the lead that Endgame had as of Sunday last week, the opening weekend. And then it lost money for the next 5 days. The Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the Friday we've just had, Star Wars: The Force Awakens out-earned it. Now, if we go with this deadline prediction, it will out-earn The Force Awakens on Saturday and Sunday, but not by that much. And then Star Wars will out-earn it on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it will have more money at that point in time than what we have for Endgame. And then after that, it'll stabilize a little bit over the weekend. They'll earn a similar amount of money, and then it will start declining again on the weekdays, but at a far slower rate. So nothing like the previous weekend there. So again, this is just predicted numbers using the Infinity War ratios, and that might not be good to use anymore because it is not earning money as well as Infinity War did at this point in time. And so I would say that this is being optimistic, and it's probably more likely that this will be further down. But we'll have to see what Saturday brings. Will Saturday get quite a lot of money? At this stage, if we go with the deadline numbers, they're saying a $58 million Saturday and a $47 million Sunday is roughly how they're breaking it down. Okay, so let's just say $60 million Saturday. So $60 million Saturday will be about a 50% increase from the Friday. It probably will get something like that. It needs something much larger to be able to have enough money to keep the Force Awakens total at bay and be able to earn more than $936 million. There aren't any real international updates yet for the box office. There is a Chinese figure, but that's about it. So it's not really too much to report on the international figures at this stage. But if we take a look at the non-inflation adjusted US domestic total records, right now, Endgame, it will be just above Star Wars: The Last Jedi at the end of the Sunday. So if it does get this $620 million, which is predicted, it'll be bigger than the 8th biggest film ever, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, I have been saying that that's my kind of worst-case scenario film. If it absolutely dies in the box office after Sunday, that's the kind of figure we're looking at. Obviously, that can't happen anymore. It's already going to earn more than The Last Jedi, and it's got months to run on its box office. So $620 million predicted at this stage for Sunday. That will make it the 8th largest film ever, just behind Marvel's The Avengers from 2012. And if we take a look at the inflation-adjusted records, the $620 million will put it as the 42nd biggest film ever in the US domestic market, just above Home Alone and just underneath Independence Day. So a little bit more competition when we put inflation on, and we can see the Avengers Infinity War, $652 million there, number 35. So once again, at this stage, we're looking at maybe a $60 million Saturday, and if we do get around about a $60 million Saturday, that's not enough money to show that this film can outdo Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.